This module is all about personal financial ratios. We're going to talk about how to calculate them and then how to analyze them, meaning what information is this really giving us when we look from ratio to ratio. So let's list out the ratios that we think are most important for you and your clients. First, we have the liquidity ratio. And that is monetary assets. And remember, those monetary assets are the liquid assets. So that's cash and what they've got in their bank accounts and CDs and so on. Those assets that they can quickly put their hands on. Divided by their monthly expenses. And so I'm just going to cover how to calculate and how to analyze ratio by ratio instead of listing all the ratios and then going back and talking about what they mean. So in our first ratio, the liquidity ratio, again, we're taking their monetary or liquid assets and dividing it by monthly expenses. And so what this is going to tell us is the number of months that your client can meet their living expenses, and that's really important if they're potentially going to lose some income. So they want to see how long will the assets that they have last them given their current level of expenses. So again, keep in mind that this ratio is based on where they are right now, what assets they have on hand right now, and what their current living expenses are. Now, of course, if they're facing a decrease in income, then they might want to cut back on expenses, but this is a good measure, particularly when they're not facing a decrease in income, so that you just have a sense of preparedness, because bad things can happen at any time. Let's look at our next ratio, and that is assets to debt. And so our assets to debt ratio is going to be just total assets over total debt. And what this one is telling us, and sometimes we call this DTI, which is debt to income. No, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. This one is not debt to income. This is just assets to debt. And so what this one is telling us is the degree to which our assets exceed or fail to exceed our debt. So, it's just a simple ratio. So how much do our assets exceed debt, or your client's assets? So if you think about this, we want to have more assets than debt. And so you want this number to be greater than 1. I'm running out of space. So we want this to be greater than 1, because then that means that our assets will be greater than our debt. And that is just one of a couple of debt ratios that we're going to look at. Let's pause here and I'll move to another page and we can go on with a few more ratios.